INFJ gals. If you are a younger gal that's INFJ, you're the one I kind of want to talk to. Keep in mind that, and this is really important, this is about you being able to follow your convictions and to live out whatever your purpose is, whatever you have determined to be a good and valuable, far-reaching purpose. Okay? That's what we're all about, right? What is real, what is most important. But I'm going to tell you what is a huge threat to you being able to do that, what will rob you of the ability to do that, will render you completely helpless and unable to do that, to follow that purpose. And that is idealism in romantic relationships. Now, there's others, but this is my frame of reference. I don't know it all. If life is a jungle, and we're going down a trail through the jungle, I'm just farther ahead and I'm telling you what's ahead. I'm telling you where the quicksand is and that kind of thing. So we tend towards idealism in our relationships, and it's sweet and dangerous all at the same time. I would encourage you to lean in toward your logical self, because we all have all of the personality types. We just are more prevalent in some areas than others. So lean into that logic. Let that logic be in a sense, you, and it's all you, the grown-up parent that is taking that idealistic, beautiful, idealistic, childlike heart and taking that child, if you will, by the hand and keeping them safe. Because that child will see, oh, I see something really cool over there, I want to run over there. And then the logical parent says, oh, I know you do, honey, but that's a 6-lane freeway. That's not safe to go there. And literally saves that child's life. That is the degree of severity I'm talking about. Death is more than just physical death. Your soul can die in a way if you are in the wrong situation. So let your logic lead. Analyze. You've got a great analyzing mind. We analyze up the yin yang. Let what you find there. Don't ignore what you find there when you analyze a situation. Yes, you are analyzing a human being, and yes, every life is valuable, and every life is significant, and yes, every life has hope. That doesn't mean that it's your responsibility to marry it or date it. That's a whole different realm. Being friends with somebody, even that, you can get quite enmeshed, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about a significant, committed, romantic relationship. So, there's a book called Telling Yourself a Truth. It's not specifically about romance, but it's excellent. It is a Christian book. So if you're not a Christian, you'll bear with it and glean the good stuff that you find there, because there's a lot. And in fact, even if you're not a Christian, there's actually a lot of really good proverbs that talk about wisdom, that those proverbs can be used and applied to your life. You probably do some of them anyway. But I'm going to tell you a story, and it's going to give you a little window. It is hard to be vulnerable, but it's going to give you a window. Because if I paint a true picture of something that has happened to somebody, you're more likely to remember it, you're more likely to take it to heart. So I didn't listen to logic. I blew past logic. I ignored my intuition in favor of idealism. We're very loyal people and idealistic. So I blew past those things, and I married somebody, and he had certain pathologies. And I'm telling you that certain personality types, or people with certain pathologies, mental problems or whatever, or predator types, will find us. They do find us, because some of them are intuitive too, but also a lot of them are scanning the horizon for a good place to get where they want to be. And I'm not saying all of it is just simply they're purely evil. Some of these people are operating from a base psychological level that they're surviving, and the only way that they can survive is to dominate somebody, control somebody, or whatever. And that can look a lot of different ways, but I'll give you a story just to give you an idea. So in my relationship that progressively deteriorated or got worse or more severe or extreme, and I confess I've got a problem with, I tend to see the world based on my experience, and so I'm always thinking that every situation is going to be the worst case scenario because that's what I lived with. And I know there's a lot more middle ground, but even so, please take it to heart. Every minute of my life was accounted for by my ex, and I didn't even follow my own conviction about my faith. There's a scripture, bear with me, okay? I don't want you to miss what I have to say, because if you're not a Christian, you might miss it because you shut it out. There's a scripture that says, take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ, which sounds hard, heavy-handed, but in fact it's actually the most merciful and kind thing to request or recommend to us, because that is the safest love. But I took, in spite of what I knew, I took every thought captive to make it obedient to this man, thinking, believing, if I just show him how loyal I am, he's going to trust me and he's going to believe me and he's not going to be so tyrannical. And if I'm completely transparent and tell him every deep thought and confess everything that's wrong, he'll trust me. It doesn't work that way with somebody like that. Well, I was in a situation, I had 3 small children. They were always with me, so my time was always accounted for. At the time I was at home, stay-at-home mom then, and at one point I had to, I had a doctor's appointment or something that I had to go by myself. It was very, very unusual. And so on my way back, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to know I'm X amount of miles away. It's going to take X amount of time to get, the appointment will be approximately this amount of time. And I'm thinking about what he's thinking about, because he's measuring it all, and I'm going to be accountable for all of it. So, sorry, I'm cold, so the camera's probably shaking, but on my way back, and I lived in Tennessee at the time, I think it was Highway 31, and at the time, Highway 31 had a big gap and grass in between it. Well, this one area was concave and full of grass. The traffic slowed down, and I immediately began to panic. How am I going to explain this? We didn't have cell phones at the time. And then it stopped, and then I just, virtually in tears, and except for I got to the point where I didn't even really cry. I couldn't really feel anything, and but except anxiety, and then I just was thinking, how I can't explain this. How am I going to explain this? He's never going to believe me, and stuff. And then a life flight helicopter came, and I'm like, oh, thank God, it's going to be on the news. It's going to be on the news. It's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And so I sat there. I had a half hour, 45 minutes of just quiet waiting on this freeway, and I looked to the left of me out my driver window. Sorry, guys, I know it's shaky. And it had rained, and so this concave area between north and south parts of the freeway looked like it was a puddle, but it looked like a little pond. And, life was not easy at that point. So every little blessing I looked for. And there's the 23rd Psalm, which I can't recite to you because I can't remember it all right now, but part of it says, He leads me beside the still waters and restores my soul. He restores my soul. Leads me beside the still water and restores my soul. And I'm looking at this little pond. I'll call it a pond. It was really a puddle, but it was so beautiful. The sky was shining it. I mean, the sky was reflected in it. The sun is shining, and there's a little bit of wind rippling through the grass that was shiny and around the edges of it. And I could just breathe. It was just such a blessing. It was such a blessing. And I was so grateful. Well, then the traffic picked up. I went home and I walked in the door, and he immediately, comes out, and I just said, turn on the news, just turn on the news. And he did, and I was exonerated. And I got that gift of a little bit of time to myself, compacted between years of time where I didn't. And it was huge. It was a huge deal. It's a big deal to not have freedom in your own face, to have to explain every single I just saw a bird of prey, and I've got chickens over there. It's a big deal, and not every situation is as extreme as mine, but it can go there. It can go there. Now what you have is somebody who is so depleted or so destroyed that they no longer can even follow their own convictions anymore. They forfeited all of this to somebody else. They are imprisoned by this other person, or this life that they have. And now you aren't able to follow your convictions. You don't have the strength anymore. Your strength is gone. And we, as INFJ, who following our convictions and having convictions, strong, deep convictions, are everything to us. Can you possibly imagine what it is like when you know something that is vastly, vastly important, and you are unable to do it because you have no strength left? You're completely wiped out. And it shouldn't be like that, where you live a life where you have to find a puddle on the freeway and call it a pond. I mean, I don't want to minimize what a blessing that was, but there's so much more. There's so much more. Now fast forward many, many years later, and guys, the experiences that I have, though I've worked through a lot of them, they still haunt me. They still shape the way I view the world, why I feel so guarded, why I'm probably sharing this. But fast forward now, I got into a place where I didn't care if I ever met another man, was in another relationship. I was so happy in my own space, following my convictions, doing what I felt was right, having a voice, all of that. And knowing that I had some value, believing that I had some value. I ended up finding a man who is absolutely my soulmate, who is simpatico, and simpatico, is that the right word I'm going to use? Well, whatever. And he is an INTJ, so we tend to see things quite similarly and view the world in the same way. We have the deep conversations that go on in that house. I mean, it's like a think tank in there. It's a veritable think tank with all of our deep conversations that last for hours about all the biggest issues you could imagine. and yet full of compassion and a lot of patience for the differing point of view that we might end up on occasionally. And discovered laughter. Both of us have had, he's lived through his own stuff, and so humor has been an absolute lifeline for us, along with our faith. Really, really cling to it desperately at times, or both our faith and our humor as a survival tool. It ends up looking like kind of sick humor sometimes, but that's because there's some pretty hard things in the world, even on a good day, you know. So, but there's also a lot of beautiful things, and you're going to be able to see those beautiful things when you do the hard work of not letting your heart lead you when you're looking into a relationship. It will lead you astray, and it can end you up in a situation along the lines of what I had, and you don't want that. I think that the pain, and I could be wrong, but the pain, because INFJ tend to be intense people to begin with, at any time, the pain that an INFJ feels in a bad relationship is extremely intense, and probably harder for them to recover from or bounce back from or survive from. So I want you to consider what I'm saying. Just consider it, and take it for what it's worth. Know that I've got nothing to gain by you listening. I just really don't want to see any other women go through the stuff that I went through, or the stuff that many other women have gone through. Many other women have gone through far worse than I ever dreamed of. And you can spare yourself a lifetime of agony simply by not letting that idealistic heart lead. Listen to that intuition, because your gut, not your heart, and they are different. Your heart's going to just say, oh, you know, I can fix it. It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. Your gut's going, no, don't think this something's wrong with this. Your intuition's right. And your intellect will find it. Your intellect will see the red flags and go, yep, this is how this person is over here, over here, over here. Guess what? They're going to be that way here too. Or there's something really off right there. Listen to that kind of stuff. So anyway, I think I've given you enough to think about if you've listened this far. And if you care to subscribe at this point, since there's not a lot going on my channel or whatever, I just kind of want to know if this kind of dialogue is valuable to anybody, and not just this, but just day in the life stuff of INFJ in general. Then go ahead and subscribe. If not, that's cool. It is what it is, and I'm trusting that whoever needs to see this is going to end up seeing it. So that's all for now, guys. You take care.